Juliana. Hey. I can see I don't think you've logged on yet, Ian.
I think he's on
I'm not seeing you on the list.
He's on as a participant.
Oh, you're in the attendees. Okay, I'll ask Brooke to move you from an attendee to a panelist. It'll just take a minute. And okay, so now she's moved you to a panelist. All right, anything else? Okay, bye. Turn off my phone.
Is it going?
There we go.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
There you are.
And for some reason, my computer's echoing it, so let me turn the volume off of that real quick. Always something. There we go. So do we have everyone?
I believe so.
I can see 3.
I don't see Alan. Is Alan?
Holly,
Oh, Alan. No, I don't see Alan either.
no, Alan's not there.
And Ishvi's there, but his camera's just not on yet.
I'm here.
And Ishvi?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
Oh, all right, let me see. There we go. I got it.
There you are.
Oh,
So do we want to wait a minute or two for Alan or get started?
Get started.
I'm looking up to see. Yeah, we're good to go. Yep.
And there's no sign of him. Do we have is staff ready to start airing this?
We're going. We're good to go.
Okay, well, it is 2:00, so it's 2:01. Call the meeting to order for the Mendocino Historic Review Board of November 7th, 2022. Planner Cherry, can you please read the participation information for this virtual meeting?
Sure. Be happy to. The Mendocino Historical Review Board meetings are teleconferenced and not available for in-person public participation pursuant to State Executive Order N2920. Meetings are live streamed and available for viewing on Mendocino County YouTube webpage at www.youtube.com/Mendocino County Video. To minimize the risk of exposure during the public health order, the public may participate in meetings by emailing comments to pbscommissions@mendocinocounty.org or by telecomment. All public comments will be made immediately available to the board, staff, and the public as they are received and processed by staff. Written comments may be viewed on Mendocino Historical Review Board meeting webpage. Requests to participate via telecomment must have been received by 10 a.m. this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, agenda item number 2, roll call, please.
Board Member Roth.
Present.
Board Member Kapler.
Here.
Review Board Members Alan Saunders. I'll send him an email in a minute. I don't believe he's present. Review Board Member Holly Madrigal.
Here.
And Review Board Member Ishvi Alm.
Here.
All the review board members excepting Alan Saunders are present. Additionally, I'd like to note that Jesse Waldman on our planning staff and Brooke Larson are present, and myself, Juliana Cherry.
Great. Brings us to number 3, the Historic Review Board Administration.
I think Alan just showed up.
Oh, there we go. Welcome, Alan. Mark the notes that he appeared at 2:03. All right, we're on agenda item number 3, Alan. So it's a discussion of possible action, including adoption of resolution of Mendocino County Historical Review Board finding that state or local officials continue to recommend measures to promote social distancing in connection with public meetings. Are there any clarifications to that? And actually, let me ask the question. Thank you, Planner Cherry. You brought to my attention the discussion that the Planning Commission had regarding this item last week. Would this be a good time to bring up issues around that?
Sure. If the board wants to discuss continuing having the teleconference meeting, that's the agenda item that is before them at this time.
Yeah.
If you'd like, staff can give a little
So,
update as well.
Sure, I'll do a little recap and you can fill in the blanks where I might have missed something. I reviewed it earlier today. They had a lengthy discussion about the Planning Commission, what they should be doing. So this all comes to a proclamation from the governor's office of the state of California that the governor is going to rescind the emergency declaration on February 28th unless we have some crazy outbreak. So the emergency declaration is what's keeping us on our Zoom call from wherever we have our computer. So after the 28th of February, we will no longer be able to have distance meetings like this. We'll actually have to meet in person. And that will go back to our 7 o'clock time, which is part of the codification of MHRB in county code, and it will be present. There's some lengthy discussion around the possibility of doing a hybrid where, and this is for the Planning Commission, where they would both have Zoom ability as well as meeting in person, which would allow more participation. And what the Assistant County Counsel said was that, and he's going to look more into it, but at this point, the Brown Act does not allow for that because each one of our sites would have to be ADA accessible. So that would be Holly's house, Holmes' house, ... So the Planning Commission was going to put together a letter to go to the Board of Supervisors requesting the governor update the Brown Act laws to come into the 20th century. But until then, I believe we have our March meeting would have to be back in the community center in person, and that everyone who wanted could do a written comment. But if you want to do a comment about an agenda item, then you'd have to be there in person. Did I miss anything, Juliana? You're muted.
Mute button. Very good. I think just some clarifications. The MHRB bylaws set that the meeting time is at 7 p.m. on the first Monday of the month. To modify the bylaws, the Board of Supervisors would need to make that happen. We are in the state of California returning to regular Brown Act meetings following February 28th. And then until then, the Planning Commission is looking at the option of meeting in the board chambers. And one of the delays for them, as well as for MHRB, returning to the community center is the availability of the room. And staff has been working with the community center staff to find out how we can make a reservation for the community center the first Monday night of every month. Usually we pay 12 months up front. And at this point in time, the hybrid model, some of the difficulties is staffing. The Board of Supervisors has 3 staff dedicated to doing the hybrid model. And Planning and Building Services does not have that kind of staffing. Typically, it's just 1 planning staff member that goes to the public hearing. And we do not have support from admin like we do right now today. Brooke attends from her office. So having that hybrid model would involve a change of staffing, and we haven't figured out how to bridge that at this time. I think that's pretty much it.
Thank you. So any other clarifications, questions by board members about that whole shindig? Holly?
I didn't realize the 7 p.m. thing was in the bylaws, since I have not currently been attending. I started on the MHRB after we were meeting remotely at the 2 o'clock time. I've heard comments both ways as far as like the positives of having a meeting in the evening. I think because there's an idea that more people would be able to make it if they're not working a 9-to-5 job. But I also haven't experienced how many people come to the evening ones. I actually would generally be on the side of retaining our time, but meeting in person. That's just me personally. And if other board members were interested in not working at night, because it is overtime for staff, or, you know, different for staff assistants in the evening, I would be interested in possibly, you know, writing a letter to change the bylaws that says we could meet at another time than 7 p.m. But I look forward to meeting in person.
Ishvi, you have a comment?
Yeah, I thought we all at the last meeting discussed that we wanted to go back to meeting in person as soon as possible. I spoke to Ted Williams, and he said the supervisors are already meeting in person. So I don't know why we have to wait till February to start meeting in person. It seems ludicrous to me. 7 o'clock is better because people can attend the meetings who are working, and so you get more public participation, at least in my experience in the past. In the evening meetings, you know, a number of people would attend if there was substantial issues on the agenda. So I would encourage us to go back to meeting in person as soon as we can.
Part of the issue is the availability of the space. And so I think that's what Juliana was about to say. So what the planning commission said was that they would rather meet as early as possible in person, depending upon availability of the spaces. So,
Yeah, I was just going to mention that I have been to those evening meetings, and they were quite popular. And I've certainly heard from members of the community that would like to go to those meetings again. And so I would support moving toward that. I guess the first meeting could be in early March. And I hope the staff is working toward that to make that happen.
Have we checked to see if the community center is available? I mean, it's generally doesn't seem very crowded over there.
especially 7 o'clock.
Yes, has that been checked on, Juliana?
Yes, staff is working closely with the community center to secure the regular Monday evening time. But I also believe that Director Krog would like to chime in.
Thank you. Julia Krog, Planning and Building Services Director. Nice to see all of you, virtually, that is. So we had a lengthy discussion, as Chair Roth saw at the Planning Commission hearing. And one of the items is it's going to be important. I know I heard from board member Ohm that he would like to return to in-person sooner. And one of the activities that myself and our deputy county council are looking at are the requirements if you are doing so prior to the end of the state of emergency, and what kind of standards are required to be in place to allow for the full participation of the public as well. So I do not yet have all of the information in front of me to tell you exactly what that would look like. I can tell you that the Planning Commission was talking about possibly returning in the new year in January to allow staff time to be able to come back to them with that additional information before making a formal decision. So I would encourage this body to do the same thing. Essentially having staff continue to work on this and discuss it at your next meeting. I'm unsure if we have items for the December agenda, but to be able to come back at that time to talk about the requirements as once we've heard from council, and be able to make an informed decision at that point.
I recall also that at the Planning Commission meeting, there is also a noticing issue. Have we started noticing our December MHRB meeting yet?
You have not yet.
Okay, so that's another factor that goes into it. Alan, I see you have your hand up, please.
Yeah, one comment to Juliana. I don't know how disruptive it would be if we did this, but I'm not clear whether they're looking to book for a whole year or whether they're booking individual meetings. It seems to me that, if we're trying to get 12 first Mondays together, that's much harder than saying, okay, we're going to do March and April and maybe not May. I don't know how disruptive that would be, but I don't want to find that we don't go back in person because in July of next year, the room is booked, for example.
I believe we will be back in person in March because the public health order will no longer be in place. So we're working actively to secure all of our regular meeting times with the community center so that we can have those meetings at those times. I haven't had an opportunity to talk with Brooke this week. Well, today's Monday, in the last couple of days to see what she's learned in talking with the community center about the availability of the room for, say, January and February. But I do know that March will undoubtedly be at the community center at 7 p.m. on Monday.
Okay.
The first Monday of the month. But to also answer your question, the department pays for 12 meetings in the community center at one time. And we pay that up front. It's a non-refundable fee that the community center charges us. And so that's part of securing the room.
That could change though. I mean, there's no reason why that needs to be that way.
And I will say, from watching the Planning Commission meeting as well, there was a number of people from the public who spoke up and said that they really like the hybrid concept for a number of reasons. One consultant was, I guess, had moved to Arkansas, so it makes it easier for her to attend the meeting. Also for people to weigh in. So the Planning Commission, the way that they moved forward was they requested as of staff, and I recommend that we do the same thing, that we try to meet as soon as possible in person, if we can, prior to the February 28th, as well as encourage the county to explore a hybrid model where we can keep a lighter green footprint and not have to drive everywhere, and make it so that people can access the meeting from distance.
We have to mix this one.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if I may. So as you know, there's some real technical infeasibilities and challenges with doing hybrid meeting in the town of Mendocino. It's very different than us meeting in, say, our conference room here or in the Board of Supervisors room, because we do not have that audio visual equipment. The county staff would have to be trucking that along with us, as well as having secure connection to adequate Wi-Fi and being able to live stream that. That's when we start talking about 3 staff members being assigned to having to attend in order to run that one meeting. And I'll just tell you point blank, I don't have the staffing to be able to do so. So at this time, if you were to return to in-person, it would be to fully in-person without a hybrid model.
So let me ask what I think might be an obvious question, but is there any reason MHRB couldn't meet in the planning chambers?
There is actually. The bylaws require that you meet in the town of Mendocino at 7 p.m.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the planning chambers are in Ukiah, right? Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, any other discussion? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the resolution as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
And can we have roll call, please?
All right. Commissioner Madrigal,
Yes.
Commissioner Kapler,
Yes.
Commissioner Saunders,
Yes.
Commissioner Om,
You're muted, Ishvi. You're still muted. There you
Okay, there we go. No, I vote no on that.
and Chair Roth.
go. Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Nice discussion, by the way. Appreciate that. Agenda item number 4, determination of legal notice. Brooke, do we have proper notice established for the meeting?
All items were properly noticed.
Thank you. Agenda item number 5, approval of minutes. We do not have any minutes this meeting. The September meeting minutes, I understand, will be available at the December meeting. Correct? Okay, thank you. I got a nod from Planner Cherry. Correspondence, agenda number 6. Do we have any correspondence that received for items not on the posted agenda?
We have not received correspondence for items that are not on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Number 7, that's report from the chair. Nothing to report except that I remember a few meetings ago when we awarded the historic awards, we had 2 recipients and we decided that we would present them in person when we started meeting again in person. So if we can have that set up for our first in-person meeting, and I agreed to cover the cost of the award. So Giuliana, if you want to give me a, we can talk about this offline, but I'd like to still make that happen.
Okay.
And that's all I have. Brings us to agenda item number 8, public expression. The review board welcomes participation. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person and not more than 10 minutes for subsequent agenda items so that everyone may be heard. Public expression items are limited to matters under the jurisdiction of the review board that are not on today's meeting agenda and items that were not previously considered by the review board. If you requested to speak under public expression, please call in now. Thank you for your understanding during the public health order, and thank you for your continued interest. To encourage public participation, the review board is setting aside 3 minutes to receive public expression comments via email. Please send your comments to PBS, like Planning Building Services, PBS Commissions, plural, at mendocinocounty.org. So let's take Juliana, do you have your timer handy?
I do.
Okay, let's go ahead and put it up for 3 minutes to
Okay.
receive expression.
Don't believe we have anyone for public expression.
All right.
So do we want to give it the 3 minutes since I just said that we were going to set it aside?
Well, I have it running. I'm just trying to figure out how to share the screen.
That's it. We don't have a request for telecomment under public expression. I believe I heard that. Is that correct?
Right. We don't have any requests in advance of the meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
There we go.
There we go. And might I remind board members that we still are live, and so you may want to turn your mute on. So if any background noise does not come through, and I believe Juliana will give us a heads up when we have 15 seconds left.
We have about 30 seconds left.
He's finally old. We've taken him a couple times before. I think he's finally old enough to actually enjoy himself.
10 seconds left.
I love to play now. It's so fun. My favorite is the conservatory flowers. Get right next door.
All right, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Did we receive any additional comments or requests?
No, we did not.
Okay, thank you much. All right, brings us to agenda item number 9 on our regular calendar. I am going to recuse myself from this discussion because I have a financial relationship with the applicant. So, Holm, you ready to pick this one up?
Sure.
Great, thank you much. I'm going to mute myself and turn off my video, and I'll rejoin for number 10.
Okay. All right. So before we start talking about this item, first of all, this house was built on the basis of a 2021 MHRB permit. And we're now being asked for a new permit to replace the existing permit. Apparently, certain changes have been made to the building and the property which require a new permit. Now, from my standpoint, and from the information that we've gotten so far, I have a hard time discerning what those changes are, and I certainly need clarification. And I don't think we received a site visit for this property with regard to the item that's before us. And there seem to be very few pictures which actually show the problem areas. Also, there are a number of items that have been listed that are really not, that don't need our approval. So I'm wondering whether we should postpone the discussion to the next meeting so that there can be a site visit and some more pictures could be provided and the action items could be segregated from the non-action items. Now, I don't know if anybody else shares my concerns. If you don't, I'm happy to go ahead with looking at this whole thing today, but I really do think a site visit would be appropriate here, and also that some more information should be provided. And I think there are a lot of items here that we're supposed to discuss, but at the same time, a lot of these items really don't need our approval. So I wonder if that could be cleaned up somewhat. I'll ask the rest of the members to give their views as to whether or not we should proceed today or wait till the next meeting.
I would love to hear from Planner Waldman, maybe on. I certainly agree about the. It was a little unclear about what was what. I think I could definitely use more information. But yeah, maybe Planner Waldman has some of that information.
Okay.
If I may, through the chair, Kapler.
If I may, I'd like the board to decide on whether they want to open the discussion or not. And then staff can make their presentation after the item's been introduced.
Okay.
I'm unclear. This building is already built, but what I'm looking at here says it's a new structure. So I'm not clear on what we're doing. Because I'm looking at, I can see the building out my window, so it's already built. So I don't know, are we approving after the fact changes, or I need clarification on that.
If I may, through the chair, Kapler, Planner Waldman here, may I add some?
Yes, please.
May I ask, are you looking at a hearing packet that says MHRB 2022-0002, where the project description states that the MHRB review permit request to make exterior changes to the existing property and third residential unit?
Yes.
Thank you. I will let the board decide if you guys would like a presentation on what is in front of you today.
Yeah, but it's not a question of that yet. I think what Member Ohm was asking is this in fact an after the fact approval that's being requested? And my impression is that it is. Jesse?
Thank you, Chair Kapler. Jesse Waldman, planner for Mendocino County. This MHRB permit is to request review from the MHRB board based on a previous permit that allowed for the development of the structure in question at the street address of the site is 45020 Ukiah Street. It also has a street address for Capella Street, and that street address is also known as 45045 Capella Street. Part of the previous approved MHRB permit 2021-0001 allowed for construction of a single family residence, this third residence, and during construction, the building permit, a building permit was requested with Mendocino Planning and Building Services, and it was reviewed for consistency with the 2021-001 MHRB permit. Based on the past permit from MHRB approval, an inspection was required to be done by planning to review for consistencies with MHRB permit 21001. I've been misstating myself. The previously approved MHRB permit is 2021-0002. A condition of that permit required planning and staff to do a final inspection prior to expiration or completion of work. Staff did that in June. It may have been June, it may have been May of this year, 2022, and found multiple deviations from the approved MHRB permit. Therefore, their final building permit is not able to be completed or signed off by Planning and Building Services until they receive MHRB approval or make revisions to this said structure as approved by the board under the previous permit. This request, MHRB 2022-0002, does not supersede, but it allows the request for exterior alterations that already have been done on site without approval of MHRB. And this permit is asking to resolve those items not previously presented to or approved by the board under the previous permit. So this permit does not replace the past permit, but it does allow for, if this project is presented to you, and if the applicant's request and staff's recommendations was approved, then planning staff could then again go back to the site, review that the conditions of the previous permit and the alterations as approved under this request here are sufficient, and then they would be able to receive a final on the building permit for the said structure.
So if I summarize all that very quickly, the changes have already been made.
Yes.
We're being asked to approve them retroactively, and if we say no, they're going to have to go back and change stuff in order to get their building permit completed. Is that the sort of Reader's Digest version?
Essentially, Board Member Sanders, yes. The compliance per Mendocino County Town Zoning Ordinance, the approval is either required or the changes are either exempt from MHRB board review and approval. And so essentially either the board would need to approve what is being requested, or the applicant's landowners would need to make revisions.
Okay.
Right.
or to receive a final on their building permit. I would not want to say that this is after the fact, but it is in fact after the fact. Changes have been made to the structure previous to MHRB approval.
Okay. So now, basically, what we're looking at is, I don't know how many, but about a dozen different items here where there are issues. Some of these are within our purview, some of them are not. And so my question is still, are we ready to look at this today? Or would we want to do a site visit first? Would we want some pictures of some of the issues that have been brought to our attention here?
So you're asking us to comment, right, Hall?
Yes.
So my comment would be, if we could do it quickly without getting bogged down, it would be nice to look at the items that are in our purview and decide whether we can decide today or whether we need a site visit. And then we would either end up with a reduced list or a zero list that would speed up the process. So I don't know if that's possible, but that to me would be one way of thinning things out so that next time we aren't, going through a bigger list.
Okay. Holly?
I definitely could see. Yeah, I would like a site visit if it's not. I mean, I understand they're holding their final permit, but I think that would probably be. I would love to see some pictures of what we're talking about. I think I know what building it is, but I'd still like to double check.
Right. Okay. Ishvi?
I mean, most of these changes don't seem very substantial to me in reading it here. So I would be comfortable trying to go through them kind of quickly and see if there are any real hangups. But if you guys want to punt till the next meeting, we can also do that.
Okay. Well, it seems to be 2-2 here. I would suggest we wait till the next meeting and that we get a site visit. And as I said, I'd like to see pictures of some of these changes that have been made that are not indicated in the staff report of the 7th of November.
And perhaps we could have, Holm, your point is that a lot of these things, I believe there's probably a complaint that was made. And so they want to address there's a complaint, but this isn't in our purview. I would love to have those sort of separated out. Like these are the issues that are holding it up. These are the things that are maybe, not included in the prior permit. And it was, it needs to be addressed. And then like these other ones, people had concerns about, but they are not in our purview. Like we don't have to spend time.
Exactly. I would like to have them segregated. We have things in here like paint. These are paint colors that have been that are not really really don't need our approval anymore. I think they're approved paint colors, so I don't think those issues need to be addressed by the board at all. So I think I'd like to segregate the items that don't need our approval from the ones that do in the next staff report.
It might be helpful to the applicant, though, if we did go through this today and just shot through them so that we know which items, if there are any, are actual issues. Because I mean, their final building permit is being held up, which is probably occupancy to the structure. And so a month of delay, it might be beneficial to the applicant if we could go through these line by line. And obviously the ones that aren't in our purview, we're not going to address. The ones that we don't see an issue with, we could say fine. And then that way we can immediately know, okay, these are the only things we have to look at going forward.
Okay.
It doesn't seem like.
I think Juliana wants the floor.
I want to just restate that right now the board is working together to talk about whether or not to continue the matter, and staff is very appreciative of the input from each of the review board members on the information that they would like to see in making this decision. If the review board can come together to look at some of these more immediate items today, we can begin the discussion today, and it can certainly be continued to December. We can incorporate a site visit with the November 18 site visit that we're doing at 3 other properties in town. I also would like to note that the applicant has raised their hand, and at this time we haven't opened it to public discussion. And I don't know if the vice chair would like to open for public discussion or input from the applicant about whether or not to hear the item today. But I think that would be a great courtesy if we did hear from the applicant on whether to continue or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Juliana. I would be happy to hear from the applicant at this point.
So Brooke, if you could add the applicant, there you go. Thank you.
Can I be heard?
Yes.
Robert Schmidt, please go ahead.
Robert Schmidt, 45045 Capella Street. Yes, as far as where we are, because of various delays, et cetera, we would definitely like to at least address the issues that, and I agree with Ishvi that perhaps should not have been included or should have been categorized separately, that say permitted, or which they're just permitted. So there's a whole bunch of those. And then there's some that are saying that they're just consistent. So those are issues that could either be eliminated because they are permitted by right or consistent with the previous application or consistent with MHRB. And then we have certain items in there that already have been approved. As an example, the windows. There's a question on the windows for the location. The only question on the one window is that it was lowered 6 inches to accommodate an interior staircase. So I think we can go through a whole bunch of these, if not all of them, readily. Should there not be a whole lot of consternation in between, and that would definitely be our preference.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so in view of that request, I'm willing to proceed with the consideration of this item on our agenda. And I've been asked to briefly introduce the item. I think we're all aware of the fact that there are really quite a number of different issues here, and including a new concrete landing, natural wood railings, relocation of a window, installing wood planters, relocating venting and material from mesh to copper, painted white, white painted wood fencing, cobblestone and sand brick patio in the north and the south yards, reduction of parking spaces, removal of tenant parking only signs, and establishment of a driveway on Capella Street, white corbels on the window trims and upper fascia, and trash enclosure. So there are quite a number of things that we should take a look at. And so to begin, I guess I will ask planner Jesse Waldman to give the staff presentation with regard to this matter.
Thank you, Vice Chair Kapler. Board Member Madrigal, did you have questions before I start my presentation for this project?
No, thank you. I was just going to say that, like, I'm happy to, hear from the applicant that he'd like to see it today, just so that the applicant knows that we did not have a lot of images or call outs of what these were in our packet. So just to know that we'll get the presentation, but you know, I don't know what the concrete pad looks like, for example, you know, but yeah, I look forward to hearing the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessie Waldman, planner for Mendocino County Planning and Building Services. I'm here to present exterior alteration request for the current applicants to receive review from the board, hopefully with approval or recommendation through my staff report, the staff report that staff has prepared. And the goal is to receive a final for their building permit that was allowed this development to occur under the previous MHRB permit. I'm going to kind of repeat myself, and yes, there is an extensive list. And at time of submittal and time of preparation of this staff report, the extensive list under the project description that Vice Chair Kapler read today, that list has changed. And the reason why the list has changed is that the owner applicant has moved things around. And so some of those things, they have moved things around, and it's either exempt from an MHRB permit under the Mendocino Historical Guidelines, or it's no longer needed. And so I'm going to go through that, and I do understand your concerns about not splitting up what requires MHRB approval versus what is exempt from MHRB approval. I will take that into consideration on my next staff report, or if I need to do a revision to this one should the project be continued. So what I would like to do, board members, is I would like to go directly into the middle of the staff report, and on specifically page 5. And when I'm doing this, I would like to, what I did is I broke up all of the different requests that came into that planning and building services, because there was an extensive list of items that was requested for the after the fact revisions to the building. What I can do is I can do a share screen to show you the elevations of the structure so that you can see the elevations that the applicant has provided to show where their specific changes are. And so the first thing is, I think I will do that now, if it's okay with the board. I see a few nods, few looks of curiosity. So I am going to share screen, and I'm going to go, if you guys wanted to stay on page 5 of the hearing packet or staff report, I'm going to be going to the site plan that is actually page 16 of your hearing packet. Give me just a moment to make sure my pages are rotated appropriately. And we'll do a share screen. And then I would appreciate a thumbs up to everybody that can see the site plan. It is sheet SP2. Thank you for that. So item number 1 is a concrete landing on the south end of the property. And if you want to just take a moment to look at the site plan, across the top is Capella Street. We can see Capella Street here. Here is the new driveway. There is a gate and the landing and brick sidewalk to the front of the residence that has been constructed under the previous permit. And if we go to the middle of the property, so about halfway, give or take, from Ukiah Street and Capella Street, there is a new 28 square foot concrete landing at their deck that was constructed. Concrete is not a material that is consistently, upon my staff's review of Mendocino Historical Review Board guidelines, the design guidelines, is that the concrete is not an acceptable material. The concrete landing at the south deck would require MHRB permit review and approval per chapter 20.760. I don't want to say 20.760 throughout this entire presentation, but I did put the code in the staff report. So the Mendocino design guidelines. So that was item 1, is this concrete landing is the material staff found is not consistent. There is natural wood railings on both the north and south deck railings.
Jesse, can I interrupt you just for a second? Are we going to go through all these items and then try to talk about them, or can we discuss each item as we go so that we can determine what is going to be a hang up for the applicant?
I go ahead, Vice.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, you know, I was going to come back to it, but I suppose we could stop at this point and go through that. Frankly, so this first item, I mean, I'd like to take a look at it, and during our site visit. So I'm not sure that there's much to be discussed there.
Well,
If I may, Mr. Chair.
That's crazy.
May I, through the chair?
Yes, please continue.
To help understand what it is that you that is in the request, and to help provide an expeditious review of what is in this staff report, I think that letting you go through the brief summary, showing you on the site plan where the changes are, then you'll know when you do a site visit where you're looking for these specific changes. And then we can open it up for discussion. I think that that would be the appropriate order of presentation and then open it up for participant and owner discussion.
Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you. The second item is the natural wood railings that are on the south and north decks. Those were not included in the previously approved MHRB permit. Therefore, they are visible from both Ukiah Street and Capella Street. They are subject to MHRB review and approval. The window I will show you on the next page. This elevation on the east side. So if you are walking down Capella Street from Lansing Street and you were to look to the south at this new structure, this window here has been dropped down for construction purposes, but it was not depicted during the building review, nor did it have planning review or opportunity for the board to review that change during construction. And it was found that the window specifically, let's see, if you can see my mouse here, seeing this window, it was approved to be under the same line and height. And that drop of the window is due to a couple of things. It is due to the applicant, I'm sure, will be providing comment on this. But there is a stairwell on the inside of that wall on where the window has been lowered. And then the window that is more to the left or to the south end of the building, there is a kitchen counter on the other side of that wall on the interior of the structure. And due to the construction of the stairs, per the applicant's request of how the stairs be constructed, the windows needed to be, that window at the stairwell needed to be reduced. And that design, per the Mendocino Historical Design Guides for proportions, window proportions, that was not presented to you in the past. And so that is an item that would require your review. There are extensive wood planter boxes in the yard that have been constructed. There is changes to mesh venting throughout the side of the building that has been changed. Venting is for the heating and the Title 24 requirements for this parcel, for your heating systems, your plumbing systems, different kinds of venting. And those were proposed as a mesh vent, and they have been converted to a very nice copper finish, but the exterior change does require MHRB permit, MHRB board approval. Extensive fencing was not adequately represented in Mendocino in the previous MHRB permit, and extensive fencing has been constructed that is all visible from public right-of-way, whether it is Ukiah Street and or Capella Street. That's item number 6. So under number 6, there are parts that are exempt from approval. There's the trash enclosure fence. There's the fence in the rear yard. It is painted white. It is consistent. My staff report says, therefore, it is exempt from MHRB approval. So that is one that could be relocated to a different section of my staff report. Item number 7 is the cobblestone and sand brick patios that have been installed throughout the parcel. Also at the tower building, the golden colored, it was previously a large water tower under its historical records for this site. It is no longer a tall water tower. It is
Jesse, the tower building, is that the thing that was the old shoe store?
That is correct.
That's the tower building. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Let's see. The reduced parking from 8 to 7.5. This does alter the previously approved MHRB design. Therefore, staff found that it does require MHRB approval per the design guidelines, that is a change. There is a concern of lot coverage. Staff has done extensive calculations based on the drawings. There is no other research that I can do other than asking for a professional building inspector to go out and measure every single structure on the parcel. Reduction in the lot coverage is a concern, and it is not consistent with the MMU district standard guidelines, which is not part of MHRB requirements. However, exterior changes are a concern of MHRB approval. Number 10 is also exempt. Is regarding the fence of wood paneling, and I will go back to the site visit, and I apologize that you've been looking at not a very good site plan on my share screen. There is a section of wood fence. Here we are again at the site plan on Capella Street and Ukiah Street down at the bottom of the page. The red house is closest to Ukiah Street, and behind it there is an existing water pump shed. There is an existing sidewalk area that is behind a new fence, and the planters here you can see. And this is the only fence that is not painted white, and that was in the application as submitted by the landowners. It is exempt from MHRB approval. I will relocate that should I need to revise my staff report. Number 11 is no longer applicable as of today's date because the signs have been removed, with the exception of one sign that is at the ADA parking space. And these signs are, this is where you access the rear part of the property. It's a shared access between the adjacent parcel. There is a driveway that comes in, and I believe as of today's date, based on staff site visits of visibility, is that there is no signs with the exception of an accessible ADA compliant sign at that most southern parking spot. Signs do and are subject to MHRB design and approval. And then a driveway is required to have MHRB approval, and a new driveway with a new gate has been established in between the existing new residence and the water tower building, the golden colored structure at the northeast corner. And this driveway is here. It does require MHRB approval. My staff report states that it may be subject to, that it does require MHRB approval, but we have determined that it is exempt from an encroachment permit with Department of Transportation. That was a concern for staff at time of site inspection. Number 13 is that the previous MHRB permit 2021-002 clearly stated clear windows. Our office has received a complaint through code enforcement that the windows are tinted, and staff has requested that the order sheet be provided to Mendocino County Planning and Building Services to confirm that the Title 24 compliant windows were not actually ordered as tinted. Staff has met multiple times with the applicant and even met with the California Energy Commission, with the Mendocino County building officials and inspectors regarding Title 24 energy compliance. And you may remember we having a topic of discussion of window tints at I believe it was the September Mendocino Historical Review Board. As a result, the previous MHRB permit 2102, the application stated clear, and evidence has not been provided by the landowner, nor have the California Energy Commission stated that the windows will be a green color. That they're, according to window specs, there is a way to order clear glass. Now, Mendocino Historical Review Board guidelines state that we have colors presented, and the color is different, and there's it just requires the approval to have a different color. So 13 does require MHRB approval since the windows are not clear. Number 12 is the, I don't know if the right word is, excuse me, not number 12, number 14 is the corbels, I think is the right word to use. The previously approved detail that was going to be around the soffit, I can actually show you on this page here. And it's not the best, but it was like a truncated, like block space, block space, block space, very unique trim. And the new trim it was due to the trim location and I think the right word is the fascia of the eaves of the building didn't allow for the specific design change that they proposed in their original. But the elevations, now you can see the corbels that they've done, and had a site visit been conducted, or this would be a focus at site visit, number 14, you would see the difference between the detail of the corbels versus the type of trim. They are painted white. I have observed them. They are a very nice standard. It just varies from the previously approved permit. There's the trash enclosure that would be moving to a different part of the staff report. The trash enclosure is located not on the site plan. Oh, there it is, right here. This walkway area just south of the tower base, there is a trash enclosure, additional planting, and Those are the items that were part of the application packet, 1 through 15. As a result of understanding the building permit requirements for making sure that the building permit for the structure gets a final and staff's required to do a site inspection, there are multiple items on page 7 of the staff report where they were not included in the request, and they would, without those recommended, without MHRB approval, they will still not be receiving an approval on their building permit for the structure. One is signs, which there was a site visit conducted today, and it does appear all those signs have been removed off of the front fence along Capella Street. Those signs have gone up and down, and so they are officially not there today, so we could extract that from the request because they're not there. An uncovered electrical vehicle charging station was, at the time it was installed and it was visible from Capella Street, and due to the installation of the fence that is set back, you can see it on the site plan. Here is the driveway. Here is the 6-foot-high privacy fence painted white with gate. And there is the EV charger on the side of the house. At time of inspection, this electrical vehicle charging station was visible from Capella Street, therefore it required MHRB approval. If the fence, if the fence covers it, it doesn't need that. The fence along Capella Street, this fence, let's see, is exempt from MHRB approval. That is the fence that is back at the house. Item number 4 is the landscaping area. Now, MHRB guidelines do have specific items that require MHRB approval, and this has been where staff has been trying to do a calculation of lot coverage and the amount of disturbance on site. And it is explained under item number 4, and it does require MHRB approval. And the last one is the compacted driveway that goes all the way from Capella Street throughout the east side of the home, all the way to the planters, around the decking, and then back up the west side of the structure back to Capella Street. That does require MHRB approval. And then, so that would summarize all of the items that either have changed since it was last brought to the board, and staff made conditions of approval recommendations throughout this to make sure that the development on the site is consistent with the MHRB guidelines, as well as with the Mendocino Town Zoning Ordinance for mixed, for hold on, gotta finish my sentence. For the mixed use zoning regulations for Mendocino County Planning. That's a lot. I think a site visit would be good so that we could look at what those physical changes are. I do think I would recommend that the applicant have a time to review these, to respond today, or to provide additional information. And I am available to answer any questions, and I can talk about any of the recommended conditions of approval should you have questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I still think that and Jesse has identified a number of items that really do not need our approval. And I think they could easily be removed from this report for consideration at our next meeting. but I still think it would be useful to try and actually do a site visit before the December meeting, and to get a clear view of what's going on here, what changes have been made, and you know, we could go through each of these items now, but this has already taken an awful long time. So my preference would be to postpone, to continue this item to the next meeting, to look at the site, look at the changes that have been proposed, but also to delete those items that are not for our review, so that we don't have to talk about those at the next time. I don't know whether any of the rest of the members agree with me on this. I'd like to hear your comments.
Boy,
Okay, thank
I
you.
wasn't part of the initial permit approval on this, but and I'm not in the construction trade, but this seems like getting an audit of like every possible thing of your home, which I hesitate to think that, I don't know if any house in Mendocino Village would pass this. So I just want to say I'd be happy to hear from the applicant. I know that some of these changes are different from the original permit. I have to say, when I'm thinking about the role of this body being to approve, or, you know, to keep the character of Mendocino County, you know, that's what I consider to be my mandate. But what's challenging is that this is new construction that's being done. And, you know, I don't think that 6 inches lower on a window changes the historical look of, or the character of the home. And a number of things. Like I am surprised that planters would be in our purview, seeing as they are removable. They're not, you know, they're landscaping. I'm surprised that that qualifies as far as the, you know, the overall lot coverage. But I'd be happy to hear from the attendee. I just want you guys to know sort of how I'm leaning. I think a lot of these could probably be accepted into the new revised permit without much of a change, you know, specifically like the 6 inches lower on the window. Like I think that those things happen. So I'm certainly leaning that direction. And then a lot of the other items, it sounds like they're no longer relevant. So I'd be happy to talk about them now if, you know, if that's how we want to go. Or I'd be happy to do a site visit, but I'm leaning that way, that a number of these seem to be, you know, I don't know how, I want to find a balance. Like, people are trying to do new construction. They are trying to meet our permitting requirements. And I would like to have people feel like it's not an impossible task to achieve. I guess that's the best way to say it.
Yeah, I'm raising my hand too, by the way. I don't know. Yeah, we all want to comment. Pick one of us home. We'll work through it.
Okay. I see. Well, let me take Ishvi. Ishvi, you're muted.
Thank you. I kind of agree with Holly, and I think that we could shoot through these things pretty quickly. Like, for instance, the 28 square foot concrete landing, as far as I can tell from the site plan, it's not visible from the street. And as well as though concrete, we don't usually want concrete at the base of a stair. It's usually a fairly good idea to have a concrete landing. The wood railings, those are consistent with, you know, what we do in this town. The 6-inch window thing, not a problem. Wood planter boxes, again, landscape, it looks consistent. Relocating the mesh, that seems like not a problem at all. Cobblestone and brick is consistent with our paving requirements. That looks good historically. Parking space reduction does not seem like a problem to me. The lot coverage is not in our purview. The fencing, wooden fencing is all, that's all consistent. There's wooden fencing all throughout our town. Compacted road base is what we encourage people to use for driveways rather than asphalt or concrete. The window tinting, that's a slightly more thorny issue and probably would be something we should discuss. My tendency would be to go ahead and allow it because it's already done. Obviously, we prefer clear glass, but in this case, I think, you have tint to the windows, and it seems unreasonable and onerous to ask somebody to change out all the windows and glass in a building that's been constructed. And kind of like Holly said, I'd really like to see this board focus on if there are real and significant problems, not little minute details that happen in construction. This project, is basically consistent with what we're trying to do in terms of development. So unless I missed any, the reduction of the dental trim, that doesn't seem like a problem because wood trim is consistent throughout the town. So I'm not seeing any real issues here, and I'd like to move forward and allow the applicant to just deal with staff on the issues that aren't within our purview, because they still have issues to work through. And if we punt this thing till next meeting, we have to go through all this again, and we have 3 other items to deal with. So my tendency would be to discuss each item and move it forward. Thank you.
Okay, could we hear from the applicant, please?
Well, I haven't commented yet, Holm.
Yeah, okay, I thought you had.
No, I haven't. So I kind of wasn't going to go into detail, but I went through it sort of mathematically, and I don't have Ishti's sort of construction experience, but I ended up with like half and half. 6 of the things I'd like to actually physically see, and 5 of them I'm okay with. So that would say that, we are going to have another discussion from my point of view, because there are some items that I physically would like to see that I don't get totally comfortable with on the table. So it's about half and half in my view. So I would vote for a site visit and to go forward and reduce the list as it, there's some stuff come out already.
Right.
There's some stuff we could obviously go through pretty quickly, but there are a few things. And on the tinted windows, yeah, that is a naughty issue, but we have a complaint from someone, and I think it behooves us to have a discussion on that for sure.
Okay, thank you. All right, can we hear from the applicant, please?
Excuse me.
Yes, no?
So I think that's where we need to pull in Brooke or Planner Cherry to assist with the secretarial positions of pulling in the applicant.
The applicant should be available
Okay.
to speak.
Look,
I just want to say, Robert, yeah. Robert Schmidt, please go ahead and provide your comments as the applicant.
I apologize. I agree with history that there's certain changes during construction that basically take at that day, at that hour approval, as opposed to waiting several months, such as lowering that one window 6 inches, or I don't know what else we might come up with. But one of the things I think that we need to address is that, Jesse, you were here at the property multiple times, and I know, or I believe you took multiple photographs that might really help to share with the board if you have those handy. But otherwise, I would agree with this feed. Let's go through them. I think that there are a number, if not most, that are minor or exempt or permitted by right. As an example, the wood railing was included in the original drawing. The driveway was approved on the original drawing, the driveway where the parking is. It shows building permit or building parking, I think is what I don't have the site plan in front of me. So there's a number of things that I think should be readily addressed. And then importantly, an issue that hasn't come up, as my wife is private about this, but she has an ADA designation. So part of that requires that she have hard, firm, level surfaces to walk on. So that was the issue for doing much of the entry brick and sand. And same thing with the lateral and the areas behind the what we call the mustard cottage or the tower base. So part of the Federal Fair Housing Act allows that as part of the requirement for access and utilization of your own property. Regarding the windows, it's the first time I've heard that there was a special request for the window, but I don't know if anybody could see what I have in my hand, but it is the window order. The windows were not tinted. The slight green hue is what's created during the low E production of a splutter, I don't know what the term is, of the metal oxides to give the low E. The low E is required as part of our energy calculation package. If the windows were clear, if this was a historic building and replacement of an historic building window, then you could order that and it wouldn't have to meet the Title 24 criteria. But to unwind or pull out that part of the thread of the entire energy package does just that. It unwinds it. And so these windows are not like, I don't know, like I'll say like a tint you would put on a car window where, you know, you add the film. That is not what this is. These have a metal oxide that is sprayed on the interior faces of the window to either keep heat in or keep heat out. And according to the Title 24 definition of a low E window, and this was also provided to the staff, it is considered, quote, a clear window. And that is the definition we used with our application. And our application included a tear sheet or materials list page that indicated the type of window. And it included the Title 24 energy calculation package. And it included the one statement clear, because again, according to California Energy Commission, low E windows are consistent and considered clear. So anyway, those are, I think, some of the sticky items, but other than that, love to go through as much as we can. And as I think we're the only new construction in quite a while, so I'm sure we've had most of the town come by one way or the other, because either they're going to the market, Patterson's, or the post office, and you come by the property.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, certainly.
I'm going to make an executive decision here now. 3 of the members are interested in having a site visit. We're talking about doing the site visit within, 2 weeks or so. And the next meeting is in early December. So I'm going to suggest that we continue this item to early December, that we drop all of the items from this report that are not up for approval by the MHRB, and that we add pictures to the report, if Jesse has pictures of the changes that have been made from our original approval. I'd like to move forward in that way. Otherwise, we're going to be here until 7 o'clock tonight. So I'm going to ask that we end this discussion at this point based on those instructions. I hope Planner Waldman can understand that, and that we can arrange the site visit for, I think it's the 18th.
Staff, think, if I may, through the chair. I'm Jesse Waldman here. I would like to add 2 comments. Is that I do have existing pictures from my various site visits on file, but I will say that because of the pictures and because of this correspondence with the need for MHRB approval, the pictures that I have may or may not express what is physically on the site today. So that part, I can show you good pictures by both the applicant and by staff throughout the last 6 months to show you where the changes of concern are. However, the pictures, things have been completed further or changed further by the applicant due to construction, due to becoming compliant. And so it might cause more confusion. And the pictures that I have from today's drive-by site visit are very, very rainy. I was gonna say dark, but they're very rainy with rainy clouds in front of them, and it is only a street view. With that in mind, I need a couple minutes, so I would like to do just a little bit of research before I can say I can do a revised staff report before the next deadline. I need to verify my caseload and my deadlines with our admin staff before I answer that question. And so if I could just ask for a 90-second delayed response to you guys so I can talk to my admin staff about that, I would like to do so. But I would also say that we could conduct a site visit now that we have a clear depiction that the staff report could have been separated differently, but we could still move forward with a site visit with a clear understanding without having to repost or regenerate a new staff report. What I've heard you guys say is that I wouldn't be making changes to the recommended conditions of approval, and that you would like a site visit is what I've heard. So I'm leaving it in, I'm open to show you pictures. If I need to make changes to the packet that you've received, I need about a 90-second window to verify that I can do that.
Okay. I think the pictures are kind of moot if we're going to do a site visit. We don't need the pictures.
The site visit will then delay the opportunity for so we have 2 and 3 of we want to do a site visit. Can we see pictures so we don't have to do a site visit and to get a final sign off on the building permit?
If I may, Jesse, what we have is the chair has said he'd like to continue the matter and that he'd like to do a site view on December 18th.
Yes.
So if we can please have staff prepare for a site view on December 18th, and also either prepare a new staff report or a memo supplementing the existing staff report for the December meeting, that would be perfect. As it's the chair's decision, I had a couple of questions. I wasn't certain that you had heard all of the applicant's comments. I believe you have, so we can close that part of the meeting if the chair would like. And then I don't know if the chair wants to open for public comments. We have received some written comments, which we can post to the website, and we can also present at the next meeting if you want to delay hearing public comments for the next meeting. It might be just a really good point in the meeting to stop, but that is really up to the chair.
Thank you very much, Juliana. And yes, I'd like to stop this discussion at this point. And I didn't know that there were any public comments that we've received, but I think it would be good for us to look at those at our next meeting in December. So we'll close the item at this point, and I think I'll turn the gavel over to Ian to take up the next item on our agenda. Thank you.
Can I make one additional comment before we finish? Sorry, just after you.
I just had one question. Do you have to have a motion to continue this item, or are you able to do that?
Yes, I suppose we do need a motion to continue this item. Thank you for that. So is there anybody who's willing to make a motion to continue the item?
I would like to make one more comment, if I may.
Yes, Alan.
Some information came out about reasons for hard surfaces and stuff like that. If that can be included in any staff report going further, if there is additional information like that, that could be useful too, please.
Thank you. Okay, do I hear a motion to continue this so that we can have a site visit before we finalize our views on this matter.
Yeah, I would move that we have a site visit before we conclude. Yes, I'll propose that.
Thank you. Second?
I have a question about the request.
Go ahead.
What?
Hard surfaces, could you explain hard surfaces? Do you mean concrete? Do you mean gravel?
I just heard a comment from the applicant that there were some reasons for some of the things that were done that were not obvious to us. He was referencing a need for hard surfaces for his wife's condition, for example. And so that was the sort of information that it would be useful to have if there's anything like that.
Thank you.
Okay, that was what I meant. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, is there a second?
Apparently not.
I'm going to second it. So I'll second the motion to continue the matter to the next session with a site visit on the 18th.
I just have
Alright.
one last comment before the
Yes.
vote. I suppose I'm willing to vote to do a site visit, but I just want to say that I'm hopeful that we will have a much more abbreviated conversation last time. Honestly, when I look at the conditions, I'm not seeing anything. Like, I would almost like to call out the things that we think would need to be changed, and I'm not seeing those. I'm hopeful that the recommendations can include like how we could accept them and move forward, basically, for the specific items.
I would like to second what Holly's saying, and Alan, specifically, what items you thought needed more attention, because you said it was about a 6.
Yeah, I mean,
split.
so, and again, I didn't really want to get into it because this is my opinion, and it's obviously open to interpretation and, you know, from advice from someone like yourself who has a construction background. But the ones I put down were the concrete landing, the wood railings, maybe not. The cobblestones, I just like to see them. The windows, obviously, we have to have. I think we owe the person that whoever it was that was objecting some sort of discussion on that, and I'd like to see them myself and discuss sort of what the colors are. And then the trim. Yeah, if I'm going to go there, I would like to see that just to make sure. And the landscaping. So really, probably the major one is looking at the windows and looking at the concrete, making sure the concrete is not visible and not ugly. I guess those are the two. But you know, there's some others that come with it. So those are the ones I picked out. And if we had a discussion, I might change my mind. I mean, that's my point. This is why I didn't want to get into specifics.
Well, I just lastly, just before we take this vote, I'm just in the interest of trying to not continue this and not have a bunch of more staff time and client and application time on this. It seems like if we could discuss the windows and the concrete, because those are the two that seem to be of concern, it might be useful. I think the applicant addressed the window issue pretty clearly. Low E does have some tint to it, and it is a requirement for Title 24 for new construction. So I don't think that what we have here is an actual case of tinted windows being installed. We just have modern low E windows in a town that's full of single pane glazing, which doesn't really work.
Yeah.
I just if I could rebut that, the applicant actually said it that you don't have to have tinted windows. You have to have a package that's a thermal meets the thermal requirements. And the problem is, if you wanted to change the windows, you'd have to rewind and redo all that study. So the windows themselves are not a requirement. The second thing I would say is that from the point of view personally, if whoever it was had complaints, I would like not only to see a piece of paper, I would like to have gone around and take a real detailed look at the windows and be able to say, yes, I looked at them and I understand your concern, but yes, they're okay, or no, they're not, or this is the reason. So I think I owe it to not just the applicant, but I owe it to whoever it was who made the comment to have more information.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Okay. So we're back to,
We have a motion and a second, and if I may take a vote.
yes, please.
All right, so the motion was made by Saunders to continue the matter to the December meeting, and I believe to include a site view on the date that we settle on for doing site views. And right now we're talking about December 18th.
Isn't it November? I think it's November.
Oh, I'm sorry,
November
November 18th is what we're talking about for site views. And I just want to mention that site views at under the public health order are for the review board members and the applicant and staff, but we do not notice the site views, and we don't encourage public participation under the public health order. So the matter would be continued to the December meeting. So the motion was made by Saunders, seconded by Kepler. So if I may, Ishvi Alm, your vote, please.
Aye.
That was a yes.
Yes.
And if I may, review board member Holly Madrigal, your vote, please, on continuing the matter.
Aye.
That's a yes. Review board member Kepler
Aye.
and review board member Saunders.
Yes.
So there's a unanimous vote to continue the matter to December. And if I can just hold a moment. And we will add it to the December calendar.
I do also want to say for the record that the site visits, the board members are separated so that there's not a majority of board members at any time.
Right,
The
and
site visit-
we purposefully limit it to 2 board members at any one site at a time so that we don't need to follow Brown Act, which would otherwise require us to give public notice of the site views.
And I'm wondering if we could take a short break possibly for the next item.
All right, and I also need to confer a little bit with staff because they're, so yes, I return it to the chair.
Thank you. Right. Well, I think we're bringing this marathon item to a close, and that shows you that you shouldn't trust me with chairing anything. But anyway, so let's take a 3-minute break, and then we'll turn the gavel over to Ian Roth for the next item. Thank you.
3 minutes. 3-minute break.
Juliana, do we have you back in your chair? I think our timer's up.
Yeah, our timer is up. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Been trying to figure out preparing this item for the December meeting. And it looks like the matter that was before the board while you were out, Ian, has been continued to the December meeting. Staff will prepare a memo rather than a staff report. And the memo might not be available until a few days before the December meeting. Unlike staff reports that are published and distributed about 10 days before the MHRB meeting, memos can be prepared much closer to the hearing date. So it may be that the memo is distributed to the review board by email and posted on the website. So look for the memo, not on the date of the site view, but maybe very close to the date of the review board meeting.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
And Holm, Vice Chair Holm, thank you so much for taking the gavel on that one. Took one for the team.
Yes.
All right, we're back in session. We just lost Ishvi. There you go. Okay. Okay, that brings us to item number 10A, nominate 2022 Review Board Chair and Vice Chair. I think basically that's what it is. So are there any nominations or self-nominations?
First of all, I want to indicate that I do not want to continue as vice chair, but I do want to make a nomination, two nominations really. I would like to nominate Ian to continue as the chairman of our wonderful little group. I think he's done a tremendous job in the past year, and I think it would be great if he could continue as chairman for another year. And I would also like to nominate Holly Madrigal to be the new vice chair. I know I haven't talked to you, Holly, about whether you'd be available to do that, but I know that with your participation in our group over the past year and your background, you're more than qualified to do that job as well. So I'd like to put these two nominations forward for our consideration next time.
Thank you, Vice Chair Holm. Are there any other nominations or discussion? Hearing none, and I do appreciate Holm you throwing me back into that chair again. It will be actually kind of fun doing it in person for once, because when I assumed chair was when we hit COVID. So, and thank you so much for those kind remarks. Hearing no further discussion, I think we need to, we will be having a vote on the nominations at the December meeting. Thank you. Oh, I guess the other question is, looking at the agenda, do we have any motions from the nominations from the public?
I haven't received any nominations. I don't know if you want to take a 3-minute break for nominations, or people could just email them in to PBS commissions and we could incorporate that into the December meeting agenda.
Why don't we do that?
Okay.
The latter. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
No, I'll bring it up under matters from staff.
Okay. Which brings us to agenda item number 10B, matters from the board. This is a discussion of the draft memorandum to the Board of Supervisors about the MHRB participating in the 1972 Mills Act program. And this is following our September 12th introduction to the review board by Vice Chair Kapler. So, Holm, do you want to take this one a little further?
Sure. At our last meeting, the board agreed to ask the Board of Supervisors to look into Mendocino County participation in the Mills Act program. And I was asked to prepare a draft memo to the Board of Supervisors setting forth our request. And I've done that, and the draft is now before us for approval or modification. And since I drafted it, I obviously like it. So I'd like to find if anybody's can agree to send us to the Board of Supervisors, and whether you have any changes to propose to the draft.
And I'm just going to shift this over because our procedures, we first bring in any public comment, and then we'll bring it back to the board and we can discuss at that point. So have we had any correspondence or telephone calls that have been received regarding this item?
No, we have not.
Okay. Let's hate to drag you through it, but we probably should request public expression. So can we throw our 3-minute timer?
Sure.
Will give us another stretch moment, but good news is we're heading towards the end of the agenda. So let's hit 3, and just a reminder that board members should probably mute themselves because that's still live. Thank you.
So we have about 10 seconds left. All right, the 3 minutes have concluded.
Thank you. Have we received any correspondence on this item?
No, we have not.
Okay. Maybe we'll have a little more luck when we have these in person, huh? All right. So we don't have anyone queued up, correct?
Right. So maybe discussion amongst the board members.
Yep. So what do you guys think about Holmes' letter? Should we keep it as is, or do we need to edit it or push it on through?
I'm good.
Thanks, Alan.
Looks good to me.
History, Ollie? All right. Home, thank you. Appreciate that. Now let's see if we can get the board to do something, huh?
So how do we actually send this to the board?
I believe staff can help with that. Would you like the board members to sign the memo individually and send that on to the Board of Supervisors? I could mail the document around to collect signatures or collect them on November 18th when we see each other. Or I could send it without signatures to the Board of Supervisors.
It's okay without signatures, I would think.
Okay, all right, I will coordinate
And
with the director on that.
I'd be happy to coordinate with you, Juliana, and I can I'll throw my signature on as the chair.
Okay,
That will have something in ink.
And
all right,
in like the event that anybody does claim it or complain, they have this minutes, they can go look.
right, and the Board of Supervisors does receive a copy of the packets for all hearing bodies, so they have seen a draft amongst all the paperwork that I'm sure they review.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I believe we need to have a motion to put forth this letter to the board.
Also,
Yeah, I'll make a motion to send the letter to the board.
Okay, if you don't mind. Good. I'll let Home be the first and Holly be the second. Just with a show of hands, all in favor, raise your hands. All opposed, none. Let the record show that all board members raise their hands in affirmation of this motion.
Thank you.
Sure. Agenda item number 10C, matters from the board members. Let's start with our vice chair. Home, do you have any matters for the board?
No.
No. Alan?
No.
Holly? Ishvi?
Yeah, so I'm curious because at the last meeting, I had asked that we get a couple of things on the agenda to discuss signage and wooden windows in this town. I think those two items should still be discussed. I think we can streamline the process a lot and make it a lot easier to work in this town, but I don't see those on the agenda. So I'm not sure how or why that didn't happen, or if the process, I just didn't do it right, or what.
Right,
So,
if I may,
go ahead.
my apologies. I had intended, the board had directed staff to coordinate with Ishvi on both of these topics so that he could have a better understanding of the review board's discussion to date on both of these topics, since we have had numerous discussions over the last several years regarding signs and wooden windows. And I have neglected to have that happen in the last 2 months. I'm very apologetic. I also neglected in preparing the agenda to discuss adding those matters to the agenda with the chair. And I further apologize. The December agenda is very full, and I would prefer, if the chair would like to have these items added to the agenda, that we look at a January or February agenda, because December is just a very full already.
Okay. Do we have a January meeting planned?
Yes, it is, I believe, the second Monday in January. Let me double check, because I think the first Monday is actually not a holiday.
It's the 5th, which I think, that's
Yeah,
December.
it falls on, the January meeting will be January 9.
Yeah, that looks right. The second's a Monday, and that's the day after New Year's. So that's probably wise. You probably need a little bit of clarification as to what approach Ishvi wants. Is that correct?
That and yeah, what new aspects of signs and wooden windows does the chair want the board to discuss?
So maybe it'd be good if I met with Ishvi. Maybe you and I can meet and we can talk about it.
Yeah, we can do that, but let me just get clarification. Wouldn't the purpose of having it on the agenda would be so that we could discuss these items, where everybody can discuss them in open? I mean, I've been to some of the meetings, I've been to a lot of them, and we have discussions, but it never seems to be completely figured out. So it seems like some of these things might just need to be continuously discussed until we can figure out a way where like signage isn't so onerous for the business owners in this town. So I'm willing to meet with you, Holmes, in advance, but I don't quite see the utility of additional meetings. It seems like we could just put it on the agenda. We could talk about it. And if we can't figure it out, we can't figure it out.
I think one of the problems is that it's going to require some staff time to have, and so I guess to try to figure out where it is you're coming from, because otherwise staff's going to have to prepare an update for where we are with signage in the town as well as wooden windows. So I'm just trying to help to keep the focus and the discussion tight, as opposed to rehashing everything all over again and not knowing where we've been.
Right. I mean, I just have some very specific ideas about both of those things. And I don't know that it would take any staff time to put it on the agenda, but I guess I don't quite understand the process and why it is as complicated as it seems to be, because my ideas particularly for signage are pretty simple. But I'd certainly be willing to have a meeting with you if that's the correct way to push this forward.
I think it'd be helpful just so I can get some little, picture ideas. I don't want to be exclusionary by any means, but I'd like to be able to communicate that with our planner staff so that they can give us the tools we need to get to a decision.
Okay.
So off calendar issue, we can chat.
Sure. Sounds good.
Thank you. I think that takes care of matters from the board.
I'm not sure that you heard from Alan Saunders or Holly Madrigal.
They all said that they weren't interested.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Multitasking on my side.
Yeah. Which brings us to item number 11D, which is the last one, matters from staff. So, Planner Cherry, what do you have for us?
It's good to see all of you. And I so appreciate your weighing in on these topics about how development in the town of Mendocino harmonizes within the district. We're trying very hard to schedule a site view with the review board members during November. And Mark Kleiser, who will be facilitating the December meeting, has been in contact with each of the review board members. I believe you guys can respond to Mark on your availability to attend, and I imagine Mark will be sending out a revised schedule as we'll be adding another property to the site views on Friday, November 18th.
We have Mark sent out a schedule for us. We have times starting at 10:30 in the morning.
If I may, I think the schedules, if I may, I think the schedule will change because we're adding another property.
Okay. So we'll be patient waiting for Mark's new schedule.
Right. Thank you. Then also, I wanted to let you know that I will not be available on November 18 to participate in the site visits. I will be in town and available the week of Thanksgiving if anyone would like to meet at a site at that time. I believe I'll be in town on the 22nd, doing some work with property owners who want to come forward with applications. That's Tuesday, the 22nd. I am noticing that the December MHRB meeting is really full. We know we have 3 items on the agenda, and we've continued a matter that makes 4 items. Staffing, we were wondering if the review board members might be interested in starting the meeting earlier than 2 p.m. to accommodate finishing the meeting by 5 p.m. And I wanted to see what times the review board might think about for the December meeting, what time an earlier time might be. Since it's a special meeting time, we could certainly look at something other than 2 p.m. The meeting is on December 5th, which is a Monday, and typically the special meetings start at 2. But I'm wondering if the review board would like to start the meeting earlier than 2 and what that hour might look like.
Does anyone have any scheduling conflicts to start at 1? And I promise to insert at least 1, maybe 2 breaks. But Holly, if you want to poke me on that and remind me, that'd be great.
I don't have any specific, I don't believe I have a specific conflict at this time, but I do also work full time. And so I just, I would like to endeavor to, you know, I know we have a lot to get through, but I think that we could also, as board members, like endeavor to try to, you know, keep right to it. Because I mean, we're talking more than a 3-hour, you know. I could make it happen, but I would like to have some parameters on it.
I'll keep us on track keep us as expeditious as we can. Anyone else have any heartburn about starting at 1 o'clock on December 5th? Okay, I think we're good. Let's go for 1 o'clock on December 5th for our next meeting.
Okay, if I could have by a show of hands that the review board would like the meeting on December 5th to begin at 1 p.m. All right, I see all 5. Thank you very much.
All 5.
All right, that is a huge help. And on the sidebar, I have noticed that when the agendas are full, we do tend to get through them more quickly.
Good. And hopefully
So,
we will beaten that last agenda item that I had to step away from, hopefully beating that to death so we can come to a quick resolution.
Yeah.
So with that, everyone stay healthy and safe and dry, and thank you for the rain. Whoever is in charge of that, I appreciate it. Calling this.
It looks like there's one more comment.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I received something titled Grading and Drainage Plans for 45300 Main Street. Anybody know what that's about?
I believe that's one of our site visits.
Is it?
45300 Main Street. That's our first one that was scheduled on the prior schedule.
Okay.
Yeah, I did want to say, if I may, we publish about 10 days before MHRB meetings. So that would be Thanksgiving week, like around the 23rd. And the site view is scheduled for the 18th. We're going to work very hard to get the packets to the review board members before the 18th. But please bear with us if that's not possible. One of the site views is on the Aguilar property, which is on Main. And that one is really about street improvements like sidewalks, I believe, and grading. They are proposing to subdivide. They previously received approval to subdivide, and then they allowed that to lapse as well as their MHRB permit to lapse. And the reason they need the MHRB permit is the Department of Transportation is asking for certain site improvements as part of the subdivision. So they're coming forward basically with what has been previously approved. And we'll look at that site on November 18.
Okay.
Thank you for the clarification. Anything else before we head out? Great. Stay warm, stay safe, stay dry. We're calling this meeting adjourned at 4:04 p.m.
Right.
Take care.
Thank you very much.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone.